everyone. My name is Manju, and these are my teammates, Kyle, Margaret, and Eric, and we are Team Orbis. The opioid epidemic is the deadliest drug crisis in American history. In the past year alone, over 12 million people misused opioids, over 2 million were addicted, and over 30,000 died from an overdose. The country has been feverishly working towards a solution, but nothing's worked. That's because there's a crucial area that's being overlooked, that of the treatment of opioid use disorder. There is a highly effective evidence-based solution to opioid use disorder. It's called medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, and it combines behavioral counseling in conjunction with an anti-opioid therapeutic. MAT has been proven to reduce overdose deaths by over 50%, reduce criminal activity and relapse rates. However, it is extremely underutilized because the process of diagnosing withdrawal, a key step in medication-assisted treatment, is both time-consuming and subjective. Currently, opioid withdrawal is diagnosed using something called the Clinical Opiate Withdrawal Scale Score, or the COWS score. The COWS integrates 11 physiological symptoms in order to determine the severity of withdrawal. Based on the score, a clinician determines if a patient is ready for treatment. However, the COWS can be subjective, time-consuming, and dangerous, and an inaccurate assessment can lead to premature treatment, which can lead to something called precipitated withdrawal, which is the severe and rapid onset of all of the symptoms of withdrawal in a 30-second period of time. This is both extremely painful and dangerous for a patient. Thus, if we can somehow objectively, continuously, and accurately monitor the COWS score, we can reduce the rate of precipitated withdrawal from occurring, thereby increasing the availability of medication-assisted treatment for all those who need it. Our solution is Orbis, the Opioid Reporting and Biosensor Integration System. This system combines a wristband wearable, which integrates 3 biosensors, which in turn measure 4 physiological symptoms of the COWS, with a mobile application. The 4 symptoms indicate the severity of withdrawal and then alert a clinician through the mobile application and then prompt the clinician through the remaining symptoms of the COWS score, finally giving a treatment recommendation. Let's walk through the workflow of diagnosing withdrawal with Orbis and without Orbis. In scenario 1, a patient walks into a pain clinic exhibiting symptoms of withdrawal, and a clinician immediately takes their COWS score, but the score indicates that the patient isn't ready for treatment. So the clinician leaves, comes back 15 minutes later, takes the score again, but the patient still isn't ready. This process is repeated again and again until the patient is finally ready and the treatment can be administered. In scenario 2, a patient experiencing withdrawal walks into a pain clinic and Orbis is immediately placed on his or her wrist. The clinician can see other patients during this time until he or she is alerted through the mobile application that this patient is ready for treatment. The COWS score is taken just once and the treatment is administered.
As you saw in the workflow slide, one of the major goals of Orbis is to increase time savings for clinicians. In doing this, Orbis enables clinicians to save time by not seeing patients repeatedly and also decreases the resource costs associated with diagnosing opioid use disorder repeatedly. Second, Orbis's major goal was to improve patient outcomes by increasing the accuracy of both withdrawal diagnosis and treatment. And ultimately, Orbis aimed to reduce the societal burden associated with the opioid epidemic, reducing the rates of relapse, overdose, and crime. Therefore, we targeted 3 major specifications for our device. On the hardware side, we wanted to build something that was portable, lightweight, durable, and inexpensive. On the software side, we needed something that updated rapidly and enabled clinicians to accurately take the COWS score through our mobile application and our wearable. Last, and most importantly, is COWS score accuracy. Our heart rate, or pulse sensor, accelerometer, and galvanic skin response sensors needed to accurately scale to COWS score inputs. Therefore, we targeted a key specification of plus or minus 2 scaled COWS score points for these 3 sensors. And what this means is that our device could potentially have a less than 5% potential of misdiagnosing withdrawal if we met this key specification. On the hardware side, we used computer-aided design and 3D printing tools to build a device that's lightweight, portable, and can be made repeatedly with a silicon mold. On the software side, we designed multiple algorithms to successfully translate data from our biosensors into something that's a COWS score. This COWS score is then passed to Node.js, a platform used for data transfer, and is ultimately pushed into Firebase, where it is stored and then passed into our application, which we wrote in Swift for iOS. This enabled the repeated and rapid update of our application with the COW score from our wearable.
In order to evaluate our specification of COW score accuracy, we began by evaluating the accuracy of each individual biosensor. To do this, we designed 3 tests, each with a different endpoint, for the COW's parameters of heart rate, anxiety, and tremor. We also used these studies to develop our algorithms for mapping from the raw data to the COW score. Heart rate was the most straightforward to measure, with our accuracy endpoint being within 5 beats per minute relative to a pulse ox. We chose 5 beats per minute because the COWS bins its ranges for heart rate in ranges of 20 beats per minute. For tremor and galvanic skin conductance, our endpoint was the ability of Orbis to detect a statistically significant change from baseline. A change from baseline is appropriate for these parameters because the COWS scores tremor and anxiety categorically rather than numerically. So for example, what might matter is that the patient's anxiety is elevated, not the actual numerical value of their skin conductance. Thus, our accuracy specification for this reflects the need to translate the raw numerical values into a categorical assignment. To give you a better sense of the type of data we're collecting, here's a peek under the hood in MATLAB. To calculate heart rate from the raw voltage signal, we wrote a custom peak detection algorithm that is robust to noisy signals. For tremor, we first pass the raw signal through a low-pass filter, take the Fourier transform, and calculate the area under the power spectrum for each axis. For galvanic skin conductance, we use a research-grade software available online to first filter the signal and then calculate the change in skin conductance from baseline. These are the results of our individual biosensor studies. We were able to meet our accuracy endpoints for both tremor and anxiety. That is, that Orbis can detect a difference between baseline and various levels of tremor and anxiety. For heart rate, we were within 5 beats per minute most of the time, but the result was not statistically significant. We anticipate that further refinement of our peak detection algorithm, as well as testing on a greater number of subjects, would reduce this error. In order to evaluate our most important specification of overall COWS accuracy, we invited Rachel, who was a nurse with a lot of COWS experience, into the lab, and we asked her to evaluate a subject experiencing mock withdrawal using the traditional COWS method, while the subject wore Orbis at the same time. We mimicked tremor, heart rate, and anxiety using exercise, mock tremor, and disturbing video content. We're very pleased to share that we were able to meet our overall accuracy endpoint within 2 points on the COWS scale relative to a trained clinician. You can see the actual numerical values for the 4 COWS parameters we measured on the top of the slide, and we also gained a number of important qualitative takeaways from these studies.
So over the course of the semester, we had a development process bucketed into 3 main events. The first, prototype development, and attaching our 3 biosensors to a microcontroller and making multiple iterations of that device design. The second, looking at the back end and front end in terms of software development. On the back end, we refined and created algorithms in data collection and COWS score conversion for heart rate, tremors, and galvanic skin response, as well as on the front end in developing a user-friendly application that clinicians could use to actually input their own factors of the COWS score to get a result for the patient. And finally, we went through multiple phases of testing with patients or subjects that tested negative for opioid addiction, but were still helpful in refining our algorithms and collecting our final data to ensure that our device could accurately measure these symptoms. The final product that we've been able to create is the silicone-based wearable with a miniaturized microcontroller biosensor design circuit that is able to fit on the wrist. It is able to accurately read beats per minute, categorize tremors, and define anxiety for a patient, outputting a COWS score for those 4 physiological factors. To give you a sense of what our process looks like beginning to end, we have a short video for you. This shows a subject with the Orbis wearable, a prototype that we used for testing, on the wrist to your left. And then on the top of the screen, you'll see our MATLAB console filling in information on our GUI and actually running our data collection and analysis script. What will happen is that our data will be collected from 0 to 100%. At around 33% through the data collection, you'll see a green box pop up on the bottom of the screen in our Firebase database. This will allow us to take those COWS scores that we collected from the patient using Orbis and actually place them into this database to be accessed on the front end of our device. What will happen is around 33%, which will happen very soon. There'll be a green box pop up on the bottom of the screen. And then on your right, you'll see our mobile application come up. We'll input our patient name, search for the COWS score data. You'll see that data come up In this case, a 1, 1, and a 0, and a 0 for our 4 physiological factors. And then the physician will be allowed to input the other 7 factors of the COWS score manually into our application. This ends up with a total COWS score, in this case, 26. To give you a sense of our costs, we did not exceed our budget for the year, but actually built out costs for a prototype that could be developed to be manufactured wholesale. We believe this prototype would come in around $33.70, which is below our specification of $50 for hardware costs for our device. In terms of looking at the market for our device, we analyzed a couple of key points and identified 3 major treatment providers that could benefit from the use of Orbis: emergency departments in hospitals, primary care physicians or private practices, and treatment facilities, both in pain management and substance abuse. We believe that we could reach over 247,000 facilities and over 2 million patients with our device, decreasing the amount of time it takes to treat each patient for our doctor, and decreasing the annual resource costs of facilities up to $200,000. Overall, through Orbis, we hope to allow treatment providers to more effectively treat patients and have patients have better treatment outcomes in managing opioid use disorder. Looking forward, we believe there is a clear expectation for our device to function inpatient, but expansion opportunities out of our current device and into other models. Right now, we're focused on inpatient treatment, looking at a device that can be used by physicians for patients that come into a facility, but believe there's horizontal expansion opportunities in terms of making an outpatient product for users under the guidance of their physician to operate within the comfort of their own home, and then have Orbis become a new diagnostic standard in the market for diagnosing opioid use withdrawal, because it can effectively measure those symptoms continuously and objectively in a way that could theoretically be better than a physician in the long term. And finally, our diagnostic technology does not end with opioid use disorder. We believe in alcohol and other drug abuse issues. This diagnostic technology can push the realms of diagnostic capabilities for physicians to allow patients to be better treated in other areas of issue. Looking forward for our particular device, we would hope to make a printed circuit board and miniaturize our wearable design to make it fit better so that the physician can more easily use it and the patient can more easily wear it. And then move into developing our software, both on the back end and front end, to refine our algorithms and ensure that a physician can very easily operate our application. If we do this, we'd hope to clinically validate our device with hospitals and physicians around Philadelphia and New York, epicenters of the opioid epidemic, and then move into hopefully regulatory confirmation and approval, commercializing and launching our device through partnerships and distribution, and marketing a wearable device that could be given in these facilities. Overall, we believe that if this device can be brought to market and used effectively, it'd be a sincere solution to an incredibly pertinent crisis in our society. Thank you, and we're happy to take your questions.
To answer your first question, with regards to accuracy of the biosensors, heart rate would probably be better somewhere on the chest, but the wrist is really easy to place on. Tremor, actually, wrist is pretty good for that, and galvanic skin conductance can be taken anywhere. It's just the conductance of your skin. With regards to your question about baseline, so what we did for that, I can actually control it. From our patient data, we established we looked at the data, the distribution of baseline GSC, and it's similar for tremor, is normal. So we took the quantiles of that distribution to establish kind of the bins of the COWS score when we don't have a baseline for that patient. After about 5 minutes, the device knows it's been on the patient long enough to have their baseline, and then we start comparing to that. But originally, it is based on other patients' data, but since we found the distribution to be normal, we think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
So I know that when a patient has their blood taken by a nurse, for example, that stimulus actually can influence their heart rate. So a person wearing Orbis might not be subject to that stimulation. So does Orbis need to normalize that difference out, or do you think it's not an issue?
It's an interesting question. I don't necessarily know if it'll be relevant for the patients that'll be coming in, let's say, to a substance abuse treatment facility when they're in there maybe for the longer term, and Orbis will be placed on their wrist effectively multiple times throughout the day. I'd say maybe in an emergency department setting that's more relevant. I think that's a use case issue where we would work with the physicians in that environment to maybe make Orbis better at detecting I would say, the actual factors that affect withdrawal versus the factors that are external to withdrawal. I will say that in a more long-term facility, that might not be an issue. And I think that if anything, that's an algorithm issue that we can look at on the back end, working with the right people in the right environment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.